What began as a routine promotional appearance quickly spiraled into televised chaos when Jennifer Aniston confronted Jimmy Kimmel over his controversial divorce jokes, triggering an explosive on-air moment that left Hollywood buzzing. The studio audience had no idea they were about to witness one of the most uncomfortable episodes in late-night television history. Jennifer Aniston stepped onto the Jimmy Kimmel Live set wearing her trademark smile, waving to the cheering crowd as she settled into the guest chair. The interview was meant to spotlight her latest streaming project, but within minutes, the atmosphere shifted from lighthearted banter to something far more unsettling. Kimmel opened with his usual charm, praising Aniston's appearance and chatting casually about her recent work. The audience laughed as he joked about her character's romantic misadventures in her new show, but those familiar with Kimmel's style sensed something brewing beneath the rehearsed pleasantries. There was a glint in his eyes, suggesting he had prepared something extra for the night. "So," Jennifer Kimmel began, leaning back with a smirk that didn't quite reach his eyes, "I have to ask about something that's been on everyone's mind lately. Your dating life has been quite the topic of conversation in Hollywood." The audience chuckled, expecting standard celebrity gossip, but Aniston's expression tightened immediately. She had endured invasive questions about her personal life for decades. Yet something in Kimmel's tone felt different. "Jimmy, I prefer to keep my private life private," she replied diplomatically, her media-trained smile wavering. "I'm here to talk about my work." But Kimmel pressed on. Clearly, having done his research, he seemed determined to push boundaries other hosts had learned to respect. "Oh, come on, Jennifer. Everyone knows about the recent drama. The tabloids have been having a field day with your love triangle situation," he said, his voice taking on a mocking edge that made several audience members shift uncomfortably. "I mean, at your age, don't you think it's time to settle down? The biological clock and all that." The remark landed like a punch. Aniston's smile vanished, replaced by visible hurt and anger. The audience fell silent, sensing the moment had crossed from entertainment into something deeply personal and cruel. Kimmel had touched on one of the most painful aspects of her public narrative, the relentless scrutiny of her childless status and assumptions about her life choices. "Excuse me?" Aniston said, her voice barely controlled as her professional composure cracked. "What exactly are you implying, Jimmy?" The temperature in the studio seemed to drop as the two locked eyes across the coffee table. Behind the cameras, Kimmel's production team exchanged uneasy glances, aware their host had crossed into dangerous territory. Yet, instead of retreating, Kimmel doubled down, letting out a laugh that sounded forced. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking," he said. "You've been Hollywood's eternal bachelorette for, what, 20 years now? Maybe it's time to face reality about your situation." His condescension deepened the audience's silence as the cameras kept rolling. This was no playful celebrity roasting. It was personal humiliation disguised as comedy. Aniston gripped the arms of her chair, struggling to maintain control, though the storm building behind her eyes was unmistakable. "You have absolutely no right to comment on my personal choices," she said, her voice gaining strength and edge. "And frankly, I'm shocked that someone in your position would think it's appropriate to mock a woman's reproductive choices on national television." Her words were measured but heavy with years of pent-up fury. Kimmel appeared to realize his mistake, yet his ego wouldn't allow a graceful retreat. Instead, he made the decision that would define the rest of the night. "Hey, relax. It's just comedy," he said dismissively. "If you can't handle a little joke, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews." The patronizing tone sent shockwaves through the studio. That was the moment something in Jennifer Aniston snapped. Her carefully maintained Hollywood composure dissolved as she leaned forward, her voice slicing through the stunned silence. "Just comedy," she repeated, her tone dripping with incredulous rage. "You think attacking a woman's most personal struggles is comedy?" she demanded. "You think decades of invasive speculation about my body and my choices are a punchline for your monologue?" The studio audience sat frozen, caught between fascination and horror as they watched the careful dismantling of Kimmel's crafted persona. Some discreetly raised their phones, aware they were witnessing a moment of television history unfold in real time. The cameras kept rolling while the production team appeared paralyzed, uncertain whether to cut to commercial or let the chaos continue. Kimmel's face flushed as the weight of his mistake set in, but his defensive instincts overpowered his judgment. "Look, Jennifer, I didn't mean to offend you," he said. "This is how late night works. We joke about celebrities. That's what people expect, ain't?" His tone carried a whiny edge, making him sound less like a seasoned host and more like a scolded child. "Don't you dare patronize me," Aniston fired back, her voice rising with each word. "I've been doing this longer than you, and I know the difference between professional comedy and personal cruelty. What you just did crossed every line of decency and respect." Her hands trembled not with fear, but with adrenaline-fueled anger. The tension reached a breaking point when Kimmel made his second catastrophic decision of the night. Instead of offering a sincere apology, he turned to the audience with a theatrical shrug. "Ladies and gentlemen, I guess we've hit a nerve tonight," he said with a forced chuckle, attempting to cast Aniston as the villain of her own humiliation. A few uncomfortable laughs rippled through the crowd, then quickly died as the audience sensed the genuine pain behind Aniston's anger. Their muted reaction only seemed to embolden Kimmel. "Come on, Jennifer. Don't you think you're being a little dramatic? It's not like I said anything that wasn't already in the tabloids." That was the final straw. Aniston rose abruptly, her chair scraping harshly across the floor, the screech echoing through the now silent studio. "The fact that you think tabloid gossip justifies your behavior shows exactly what kind of person you are," she said, her voice steady but heavy with contempt. "I've spent 30 years in this industry being professional, being gracious and tolerating comments like yours because that's what we're expected to do. We're supposed to smile and laugh while men like you build careers tearing us down." Her words carried decades of frustration, not just her own, but that of countless women in entertainment. Kimmel's face drained of color as he began to grasp the magnitude of what was happening. This was no longer just an awkward interview. It was a career-defining moment that threatened to destroy his reputation. "Jennifer, please, let's calm down and talk about this," he pleaded, his earlier bravado completely gone. But Aniston wasn't finished. "Calm down," she said, her voice cracking with emotion beneath the anger. "You want me to calm down after humiliating me on national television? Do you have any idea what it's like to have strangers constantly dissect your personal life, making assumptions about your happiness, your worth as a woman?" The studio was so quiet that every breath seemed amplified. Kimmel's band members avoided eye contact. His sidekick shrank into his chair, and even the usually vocal audience remained completely silent, sensing they were witnessing something raw and unscripted. "I gave you respect the moment I walked out here," Aniston continued, her voice growing stronger. "I promoted your show. I was gracious to your staff. And this is how you repay that, by ambushing me with personal attacks disguised as jokes." Kimmel tried to respond, but Aniston cut him off with a single gesture that silenced him. The shift in power was unmistakable, and everyone in the studio felt it. "You know what the worst part is?" Her voice dropped to a dangerous whisper, more powerful than shouting. "You think you're entitled to my pain. You think my struggles are your content, my heartbreak your material." She paced behind her chair, unable to contain the energy surging through her. "But you've never had to endure what I have. You've never had your worth questioned because of your personal choices." The cameras captured every second as Kimmel sat motionless, completely frozen. His trademark quick wit was gone. In the booth, his writers scribbled frantically, searching for some form of damage control, but nothing could rescue the situation. The host, who had built his career on making others uncomfortable, was now trapped in that same discomfort. and he clearly didn't know how to respond. "I've watched you do this to other women," Aniston continued, her voice building like a gathering storm. "You did it to Anne Hathaway about her relationships. You did it to Charlize Theron about her dating life. You think it's funny to reduce accomplished women to their romantic status, as if that's all we're worth talking about." Her words landed like courtroom accusations, each one reinforced by years of witnessed humiliation. The audience began to murmur, some nodding as they recognized the pattern she described. Several women looked visibly moved, while others shifted uncomfortably, confronted with truths they had once laughed along with. The studio crackled with tension and sudden realization. Kimmel finally spoke, but his voice emerged as a weak croak. "Jennifer, I think you're misunderstanding my intention here. I was just trying to have a conversation about—" Aniston's laugh cut him off, sharp and bitter, devoid of humor. "A conversation," she echoed, eyebrows raised in disbelief. "Is that what you call ambushing someone with deeply personal attacks? Because I must have missed the part where you asked for my consent to discuss my reproductive choices on national television." Her sarcasm sliced through any remaining pretense of civility. The tension peaked as Aniston stepped closer to Kimmel's desk, her presence commanding the entire space. "You want to know what's really pathetic, Jimmy?" she said. "You punch down. You go after women because you know we're trained to take it gracefully. You'd never make these comments to a male guest because, you know, they'd walk out to punch you in the face." Kimmel's face turned ghostly pale, sweat beading on his forehead as the full scope of his mistake became clear. His usual smugness had been replaced by genuine fear, not of physical confrontation, but of professional ruin. Every word Aniston spoke was going out live, and he could almost feel his career collapsing in real time. "I've been nothing but professional with you," Aniston continued, her voice now steady and controlled, which only made her words more devastating. "I came here to do my job, to promote my work, to be a good guest. And you repaid that professionalism by trying to humiliate me for entertainment." Backstage, production assistants were in full panic mode, making frantic calls to network executives and legal teams. This was no longer just a bad interview. It was a public relations disaster with consequences far beyond a single broadcast. Online, clips and commentary were already spreading, turning the confrontation into a viral moment. "You know what the saddest part is?" Aniston said, her voice cracking slightly, revealing the emotion beneath her restraint. "I actually respected you once. I thought you were different. I thought you understood the line between comedy and cruelty." Her disappointment cut deeper than her anger. Kimmel made one last desperate attempt to recover. "Jennifer, please, can we just take a step back? Maybe we got off on the wrong foot, but I never meant to." His words sounded hollow, rehearsed, like a politician's non-apology. "You never meant to what?" Aniston interrupted, her voice rising again. "You never meant to hurt me. You never meant to cross the line. Or you never meant to get caught doing what you do to women every single night on this show." The questions hung in the air like indictments, each more damning than the last. The audience sat in total silence, some visibly ashamed of their earlier laughter. Others angry at realizing they had been complicit in what now felt like systematic harassment disguised as entertainment. The mood had shifted from discomfort to outright hostility, and Kimmel could feel the weight of their judgment. "You want to know what real comedy is, Jimmy?" Aniston said, her voice settling into a dangerous calm more unsettling than her earlier fury. "Real comedy doesn't require tearing women down to get laughs. Real comedy doesn't feed on someone else's pain. But you wouldn't know that, would you? Your entire career has been built on cheap shots and low blows." The force of her words was devastating. Kimmel looked like a man watching his world collapse in slow motion. His hands trembled as he gripped the desk, desperately searching for something, anything to say that might stop the damage. But Aniston wasn't finished. "I've sat through thousands of interviews in my career," she continued, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had finally reached her limit. I've smiled through inappropriate questions, laughed at jokes made at my expense, and played along because that's what we're expected to do. But not tonight. Tonight, I'm done pretending this is acceptable. A few people in the audience began clapping slowly. The applause grew as others joined in. It wasn't the forced enthusiasm of a typical talk show crowd. It was genuine respect for someone finally saying what needed to be said. The sound seemed to give Aniston even more resolve. "You've shown everyone exactly who you are," he said, gesturing toward the still rolling cameras. "Behind the jokes and the charm, you're just another man who thinks a woman's pain is entertainment. And now everyone sees it." Kimmel made one last weak attempt to regain control. "Jennifer, I think we're both getting a little heated here. Maybe we should." His voice was swallowed by the growing murmur of approval from the audience. Now, clearly on Aniston's side. "No, Jimmy, we're not both anything," she cut in sharply. "This is all you. Your show. Your choice to attack me. Your decision to double down when you should have apologized. Own it." Her words landed like hammer blows, driving the final nails into the coffin of his credibility. Backstage, the production team was in full chaos. Network executives shouted into phones. Lawyers were summoned. Social media teams watched helplessly as hashtags calling for Kimmel's firing began trending worldwide. The fallout was spreading far beyond the studio. Aniston took a deep breath and straightened her shoulders, returning to the composed professional she had always been. Only now that composure carried the weight of someone who had drawn a clear line. "I came here tonight to promote my work and to be a good guest," she said. "Instead, I was forced to defend my basic human dignity on national television." She turned away from Kimmel and addressed the audience directly. "To everyone watching at home, you deserve better entertainment than this. You deserve hosts who lift people up, not tear them down. And women everywhere deserve respect, to be turned into punchlines for someone else's career." The applause that followed was thunderous and sustained. People stood, giving her an ovation that felt more like a rally than a television taping. Kimmel sat motionless at his desk, watching his empire crumble in real time. Aniston returned to her seat, picked up her purse with deliberate calm, and spoke clearly over the noise. "I won't be finishing this interview, and I won't be returning to shows that treat women as targets instead of guests." With that, she turned and walked toward the exit, her head held high. The audience erupted into even louder applause, many shouting words of support. Some openly cried, moved by seeing someone finally stand up to a system they had long felt powerless to challenge. As Aniston disappeared behind the curtain, the cameras lingered on Kimmel sitting alone at his desk, looking smaller and more defeated than ever. The applause continued for minutes, refusing to let the moment fade. When it finally subsided, the silence was overwhelming. The show cut to an unscheduled commercial break, but the damage was already done. Within hours, confrontation had gone viral across every major social media platform. "Respect Jennifer Aniston and Kimmel must go" began trending worldwide as millions shared clips of the confrontation and voiced their support for her courageous stand. Major advertisers started pulling their sponsorships from Kimmel's show before the night was even over. Network executives rushed into emergency meetings. Other female celebrities began coming forward with their own stories of similar treatment, triggering a domino effect that would ultimately reshape how talk shows operated. Jennifer Aniston entered that studio as a guest there to promote her latest project. She walked out as a symbol of change, having delivered a masterclass in standing up to bullies with grace, strength, and unwavering dignity. The entertainment industry would never be quite the same.